Hey, welcome everybody. This is David Bush. I'm back here live with Dr. A, and we are excited that you're joining us. If you just joined, hey, put a comment inside the comment section. Let us know what questions that you have for Dr. A, or just maybe share a positive word for the day, something that's maybe a positive experience in your life. We would just love to share more positivity in a challenging time. Dr. A, welcome back to our live Q&A.
Great. Thanks, David. And thanks for all the work you do putting these together. I find them to be helpful for me to be able to reach out with the thoughts and answer questions as we all deal through this crisis, this contagion that's, that right now we all starting to sink in is our way of life for right now. And it's going to be a while before we're over it. And I think it's important for us to take this and really put ourselves and our families, our communities, our country, and the world in the best possible position to be able to go through this and come out the other end stronger than we've been before.
You bet. For those of you that haven't been joining us over these last couple of days, we've been going through the habits of health, the 6 macro habits that Dr. Anderson has graciously provided to us in the Habits of Health Transformation System. And we've been talking through these different habits and how we can end up using these habits to overcome the challenges that we're faced. And if you haven't already got a chance to take a look at the website, there's lots of free resources. We'll be referencing some of those resources today. But what we do have is a special guest today. We have Chou. Don is one of Dr. A's success stories. Don's story has become one of the inspirations to many people. And we can't wait for you to hear a little bit about her story. And then Don's been collecting some frequently asked questions from some of the people that she talks with, and she's going to share that with Dr. A. Don, welcome to the webinar.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David, and honored to be here with you and Dr. A. I've been watching these lives every day this week. And so, this is just really fun to get to be on here and to share a little bit about my story because, it started about 10 years ago. And I was at that point in time working as a full-time registered nurse. And I was in the front line. So I have a lot of empathy right now with a lot of my friends and family members who are out there going into work every day. And really working their hardest to keep us all safe. So 10 years ago, I had been, kind of taking care of other people, but had forgotten to take care of myself. It's so easy to have that happen. Even in a time when there's not a pandemic happening, it's easy to put that focus outside of yourself and not have that, not be that dominant force in your very own life. And so what happened is I got tired. I gained some weight. My mental health was not as good as it could have been. And so everything kind of started to spiral. And I started to look for the solution. And what I thought I found was a way to, get some weight off and start to feel better in my scrubs and have more energy at work. But what actually happened was the most important part of me started to change. My mind started to change. My habits started to change. The way I felt and thought started to change the way I acted. And that started to change and ripple out into every other facet of my life. So it rippled into my family getting healthy. Then I was able to have a beautiful little baby girl who's now 8 years old. And I've been able to move from full-time frontline, in the hospital to now I get to work from home. So thank you, Dr. Anderson, for creating this amazing system and allowing us as coaches and people who care about people around us in the world to be able to take that and use it as a way to serve others, but also as a career path for me. So this has been really an interesting time because I'm now working from home. So not a whole lot has changed in my life other than the world around me has changed quite a bit in the last few weeks. And so thankful to have a different physical health, but most of all, thankful for the amazing transformation system, Dr. A, that you have created that has had the most lasting change in not only my life, but the people I'm able to be around every day.
That's awesome. I love that.
Great. You had some questions that you wanted to ask Dr. A, Don. Would you share some of those questions now?
Yeah, I absolutely would love to. Like I mentioned, it wasn't that long ago that I was front lines and just working in the hospital. And Dr. A, I've heard you and David speak a lot over the last few days to the people who are working from home, the people who are quarantined at home, the people who are maybe socially isolated or distanced. And I love that you guys have really been speaking of there's the social distancing, but that doesn't need to be social isolation, right? I'd like to hear you speak a little bit maybe to the people who are on the front lines, our first responders, our doctors, our police officers, are necessary and vital people across the country that are showing up for us every day. And if you have any tips or just wisdom to speak into them, I think that that would be so valuable, and I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, no, that's Don. That's great. And as I was listening to and remembering back when you were a nurse, when we're at a position in a place where we're actually not on the front lines anymore, it's kind of like being at war, and when someone gets hurt next to you, you feel really bad for them. And then you kind of think, oh, gosh, what about me? I'm glad I didn't get hurt there. And so it kind of puts us in a place of extreme gratitude. But I spent 20 plus years in the ICUs, up all night, many, many, many nights, taking care of sick people at a complete lack of my own personal health. In fact, it was one of the reasons why I ended up changing. Like you said, my drawstrings on my scrubs kept getting bigger, but I didn't know it because they are fully flexible. And so I really wasn't paying attention or caring about those things. And I think right now, being from both worlds, now in the world we're in now, where in general people are fearful. It's what we have control, what we don't have control of. And now for the frontline people that are being exposed, and the facts are that they are being affected at a higher rate. And I think the first thing, and I have lots of physician friends that I talk to them, pretty much, all week long, talking to one or two of them, or people that call up and ask me, how's it going? And I've reached out to some of them that are that run the ICUs now. And the first thing is, just for the country and in general, is we need to make sure we're protecting them, and they need to know that we have their full back, that we're making sure the government is, if they're going to war and in the front lines to protect us and to protect our nation and the citizens of our nation, we need to make sure. So I think it's important that we're strong advocates to reach out and truly give people the proper protection so they aren't at risk for getting sick in the first place, because it's a scary thing for them. The second thing is, to help them. I'm helping them when they are off shifts to make sure they are getting their proper sleep. When you're stressed out and things aren't going the way you want them to, the last thing we need to be doing is basically being stressed out. In other words, one of the key things about this is that when we're tired, we're not getting enough sleep. So I just encourage them to sleep better, to make sure they're taking care of themselves. And one of the other things is eating. It's the same things apply when we're stressed out and we're nervous and we're scared. I know hospital food's not so great. So hopefully they'll be bringing in healthier food and doing things that are necessary. But one of the things we do know is that they will over time get through this. And those that obviously do get sick, we want to make sure that we're providing for them that psychological support. So I think it's so much that we had Doctors Day, Hospital Day earlier this week. I think it's great, but I think it's just like, we used to say once a year for our veterans, we need right now to daily have our prayers and our best wishes for our healthcare providers, that we realize that they are going out there and making sure that we're writing into our congressmen, anything we need to do to help make sure we're getting them protected. They need to have the proper mask, the proper safety equipment, the gloves, we obviously need to make sure we're doing everything we can. But I think the biggest thing, the part we can do more than anything, is just psychological. Reach out to our doctors and just, hey, how you doing? I love to talk to you, because we're in a different place now. We're in a place where we now have safety and the ability to be socially, physically isolated, but it's a time for us to reach out psychologically and be there to help them, how much we care, how proud we are, and that we're with them every inch of the way. And then obviously work within the systems we can to make sure that healthcare providers are getting the proper safety and equipment, and also getting the proper rest. I actually looked in today about, because I've had some people ask me, I looked in today about, I haven't been in clinical practice in the hospital in a long time, but, I kind of looked at that and rationalized, is that the best place for me to go right now? And the answer is no, because I need to do more here for as many people as we can. But I think it's important to ask those questions and then find out, how do we mobilize? How do we have volunteers and people? But the thing we have to realize is, if we put people at risk, we bring healthcare providers that are older or aren't used to doing what they need to do. And if they get sick, then it actually puts more burden on the healthcare system. So I think there's a balance there, Don. But I think the most important thing we can do as individuals is just be there, kind of like, at every step of the way, when we would, clap when people were coming back from, the war. from Iraq or getting on planes, putting them on first. Let's make sure we're doing everything to let them know that this work is fully appreciated at this really tough time for them.
Thank you, Dr. A. I really love hearing, just your heart and your words there, especially because, you were right there on the front lines at one point yourself. And that's why you're so passionate about going upstream and being really a force for good in the world. And one thing that I also wanted to just ask about is, and I think we were talking, I think it was last week, about how hope and calm and kindness is also contagious, just like the contagion, is contagious. And we are like the 5 people we spend the most time with. I've heard you say that, and that's one of the things we've talked about. Can you speak a little bit about how we can become that dominant force in our lives and be aware that if we're like the 5 people we spend the most time with and we change our perspective, then our hope, all our calmness, our joy, our kindness can ripple into those people. And many of our friends, I know many of my friends personally are those first responders. They are CRNAs being cross-trained in the ICU right now. Many of the clients that I talk with on a weekly basis are not getting to go home to their families or having to stay in hotels. And how can we not only impact them, but what are some things that we can do just in ourselves to impact the 5 or 6 people that we spend the most time with, so that can ripple out instead of the fear or kind of other mindsets.
Yeah, no, that's so important. And I'm going to start right at my home. I have 2 daughters are here with each have one of their friends, and they've been sequestered in our house for weeks now, right? And so it's a different world. And I have a very busy schedule, obviously busier now than usual because we're on these Zooms doing this to help support our country and support those that are in need. Yesterday they were quabbling. 2 sisters were quabbling, and I pulled them both aside individually, and I said to them, "Listen. Bottom line is, I expect you to show up at your best. Now, if you have an issue, you're stressed out, this is bothering you, you haven't been able to do the things you wanted to do, your vacations are gone, you can't be with your friends, you're having to take one of them couldn't print off what she needed to study, so she had to do it on. And I said, listen, these are minuscule things, that adaptations you have to make. And it's okay to get frustrated. You're human. And I want you, if you go outside and scream and say your dad is just a meanie, I don't care what you do. But when you show up around other people, I want you to basically show up at your best. And so for all of us, listen, we're all nervous. We're all fearful. This epidemic is going to be with us. As I mentioned earlier, it's going to be with us for quite a while. And so that adaptation, the novelty of it is wearing off. And now it's the substance of it, the time and wondering when will it end. It's not something that's going away like a hurricane in a few days. It's going to be around for a while. So I think it's time for us individually to start exploring and the examined mind. Why are we feeling the way we are? Stop, challenge why we feel the way we are, and then choose an outcome that makes us show up at our best self. And that's just like we need to do that individually for ourselves. And then as we show up around our clients and people that may not have had the training we've had, be there, be inquisitive, listen, don't tell, but basically listen to people and share and care. And really, just like you said, our modeling occurs. Bandura's work out of Stanford early on showed that people do what the underlying structure does, right? So if we create an underlying structure where we show the proper things we need to do, just like we were talking about for healthcare professionals, have the proper protection at home, make sure we're doing the proper distancing, hand washing, all the things are important. But at the same time, let's make sure that we're showing up beyond that, being cautious, but also being present, and being present in a state where there's no sense to sit and worry about this and ruminate all day long about it. Turn off the TV, play games with our families, reestablish how much we care about each other, call up people that are important in your life and have great conversations. And, basically, there's a meditative saying called, what if it was the last time? And so for each of us to kind of use this as that, we're all on our journey through life. And we have a great opportunity to fully become present and aware for the people around us and represent ourselves in a position and with passion and with feeling. And yet at the same time, tell each other how much we love each other. There was a thing on TV a few months ago about the 4 types of love. And one of them is agape love. It's basically caring as fellow humans for each other and being there not to add to the problem, but actually being there to listen and to, with peaceful calmness, be there to support and be the calm at a time when many people are living in the drama triangle. Most people, as we talked about the other day, are really, David brought this up when we spent time talking about the emotional state of being a victim, a villain, or a hero. And that is not helping us right now. What will help us is that we care about each other and we meet people on their path, listen, and then help support them at this time, as people are now starting to learn that they are absolutely need to take responsibility for their own psychological health, and we can help them do that.
Great. Dr. A, you talk a lot about the idea of becoming your dominant force in your life, but you also have done some visual representation. In your book, Identity, you talk about this graphical representation is that the creator is oftentimes more self-absorbed in who they're not, or all the different things that they are not able to do, and they're not really focusing in on something that's bigger or something that has a greater vision in themselves. And in these times, you know, the idea of coming together to create a healthier America, a healthier world is so important. Could you maybe share a little bit of insight or expertise on this particular visual imagery?
Sure. You know, it always brings me back to the 60s when John F. Kennedy, as president, said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And I think that's so critical right now, is that we step up and we're here, you know, with the social isolation, as far as physical isolation that's occurring. We have people that really need help. They need our help. And the second part is this: there's a thing called scarcity heuristics. And what that is about is that when things are scarce, people hoard it or buy it. I think the toilet paper thing is a great example of that. And that's not stepping up and being the best we can be as a human. It's really understanding is that, you know, what do I really need during this, and what can I reach out and help others with? And you know, that piece of looking at the creator and the creation, we create what happens to us. You know, this adversity, this event that's occurred, this world event, which is similar in terms of its consequences of fully impacting every aspect, much like a war would be. Is about the only two things I can think of that have such profound impact where everything changes. This is a time for us to then ask ourselves, okay, what do I want to create during this event? Do I want to create myself as a parent, as a spouse, as a sibling? Do I want to create an environment where we come together and we sense the community, the compassion and empathy, then be the example to help people? Or do I want to run around like, you know, the sky is falling, or like Debbie Downer from Saturday Night Live, and just be, you know, everything's bad? And you have to ask yourself, what is the outcome I want? And the outcome we want is, if we really ask what are our values are we want safety, we want health, and we want as much security as we can have for ourselves and the people we care about. And for that to happen, we need to work at a way we've never worked before. And that is where not us individually self first, but us individually for the people we care about. And how we do that, it's the first time where our, you know, whether we're young or old, especially young people, that, you know, they hear that, you know, they may not be as impacted, that it might be just like a minor flu for them. Yeah, but they may impact someone's grandmother or grandfather. So I think it's really important that we become socially responsible and come together. You know, when 9/11 hit, for about a month there, Americans came together, and then they went back to their old habits. This is a time, you know, I'm very much about the habits of health. Habits are the only thing that really can change long-term sustainability and transformation. And here's a wonderful example for us. Most of us, no matter where we are, most of us are now not having the full obligation of time that we had. Obviously, if you got a bunch of kids running around at home, you got to figure that out. But beyond that, we have time to now start learning the behaviors that will sustain us, that will allow us to become that dominant force in our lives if we're not, and to realize that life is not happening to us, it's happening by us. And for us to take responsibility, you know, we've got all kinds of assets on the habitshealth.com site, which are all free. Obviously, the time when many people are being strained financially because of their occupation, we want to make sure that we're providing all these tools for people. And also that we have people, you know, putting questions in. You know, listen, we're here to provide balanced, I like to call it zero valence. What I mean by it's not charged negatively or positively, unlike, by the way, going to the news. The news is nothing but sensationalist charge, polarizing things that do nothing. They actually put people in the drama triangle, everybody pointing their finger. What we're looking to do here is to provide a balanced, negative, a non-negative, balanced, covalent way of presenting stuff, so we can give people proper information. Obviously, you know, as far as what you do daily, I think it's important to find, I've said it every day, find a great source that is refereed, like either the World Health Organization, the Johns Hopkins, the CDC, the Center for Communicable Diseases, and use that every day to kind of get a reference of where it is, what I should be doing. Florida, I'm in Florida right now, and the governor has decided as of tomorrow to create in-home, just like we have in the other highly affected states. Depending on what state you're in, make sure you're being aware of that. And then once you've done that, make sure you're doing the things to remind. And I sit down every morning with the girls and their friends and say, okay, these are the changes that have occurred. These are the updates we know. This is what we know that we didn't know. Let's use that to make ourselves be as smart as we can today. And then bottom line, let's make sure we're still focusing on the things we do have control. I always talk about the serenity prayer. Know what you can do, know what you can't do, and have the logic and wisdom to know the difference. And know what we can do. And then the rest of the day, put the rest of the day into a place where you're building relationships, either with your family, the people you're with physically, or with the people you care about distantly through Zoom, through phone calls, just reaching out. I talk to my mom. I call my mom every day now. I never did that before. I'd call her every day to make sure she's okay. And just make sure we're providing that, because we come from a reference point. Even if this is the first time you've watched us, you now know more than you did before. Take these actions, these steps, these suggestions, put them into practice, and put yourself in position so that now you can be that calm. Because right now, most people are just reacting to what's going around. And I spent 20 years, I used to react to disease as Don did in the hospital system. And now what we're doing is proactively creating what will move us forward to put us in the most optimum position we can for this very, very tumultuous time we're in.
Very good, Dr. A. For those of you that would like to join in on the Habits of Health community call tonight at 8:30, you can reach out to the person, 8:30 Eastern time. We have a 30-minute Zoom meeting where we talk about the habits of health. And tonight our topic is creating a healthier world. So if you'd like to be surrounded by other people that have a like mind for adopting the habits of health, please be sure to reach out to the person that shared this video on their Facebook wall, or that shared this video and recording with you via private messenger or some other source, because we would love to have you join in on our community. And Don, you have been around for a long time in this health community. Would you mind just sharing some of the benefits of joining in to the Healthy Community Time?
Oh my goodness, yes, absolutely. The Healthy Community Time is actually one of my favorite, because like we've been talking about, and I've heard you and Dr. A talk about, social distancing does not have to be psychologic distancing. We can be connected virtually with people, and our community that comes together, by the way, that is free for everyone, is a time where it's just 30 minutes out of the week where we get to share stories, share our positive perspective, share the wins that are happening in our lives, share some health tips and just some great overall ideas that we can put into place in our own lives, and also share with our friends and our families. And so these 30-minute calls on Wednesdays are amazing. And so I absolutely, it's a rock in my schedule. And even though a lot of people's schedules are a little different right now, I do suggest creating a weekly schedule, a daily schedule. And man, Wednesday nights at 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern is a time that's in my schedule, and I never miss it. And not only that, but I invite my friends and my family to tune in too. And then afterwards, we always get to hear some really great transformational stories of how people's lives have changed just by taking what Dr. A has so graciously created for us, this transformation system, and implementing it into their lives. So I'm very excited about tonight's call.
Great. Well, we do have all of the free resources that we mentioned today and previous sessions. Habitsofhealth.com is the place you want to go to. You can download the free app. You can get a free preview of the Habits of Health Life book, which gives you kind of a preview of some of the beginning of your future story. And Dr. A, is there anything you could share with us as final comments as we wrap up today?
Yeah, I think, as I talked about earlier, I think it's really important for us to know that we're in a siege. We're in a siege, and we need to hunker down. We need to now, yes, oh, poor me, life has happened to me, and this is not the ideal thing. I didn't get to watch March Madness. But now, as Don brought up earlier, and we talked about, the whole world is under siege. And for us now to take position of, individually and collectively, as families, as family units being together at home, let's this be our best self. Let's really show up. Let's not do the hoarding stuff. Let's make sure we're asking, do I really need this? Or am I just reacting to emotion? Let's reach out and share this with people. We'd love to bring the whole country together and basically the whole world together at a time, and realize that we're much more similar than we are different. And we're all undergoing the same adversarial from this external contagion. And this can be our finest hour. I love movies, and many of you know that. And, I've mentioned it before, but I just think it's such a great, and I watched it the other night just because I hadn't watched it in a while. But in Apollo 13, Ed Harris, who was the command at Houston Control, and they were all saying this was going to be the worst disaster in NASA's history. And he said, I believe it'll be our finest hour. And so I challenge everybody individually and us collectively to come together. Let's reach out and ask ourselves, what can we do to minimize the effect and maximize the benefit? And let's come together as fellow humans and take care of ourselves, people we love, and the people in our communities and around the world. God bless. Thank you, guys.
Great. Thanks, Dr. A. And for those of you that are going to join us tomorrow, be sure to be here at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Pacific Time, because we're going to be talking a little bit more about the idea of just weathering through tough times. And we just would love to share some more encouraging words with you. So be sure to like this Facebook page if you haven't already, so you get notified of future videos. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow.
All right. Thanks, Don. Thanks, David.